What's up, beauties? Welcome back to another video. This one is going to be a little bit different than my normal content. This is going to be bringing it back to the basics, fundamentals of highlighting. So I'm going to be going over foiling, toning, hair chemistry, all of that juicy stuff. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for this entire video because you do not want to miss all these juicy details. Even if you're a seasoned stylist, I'm sure you can pick up something new. I'm not going to waste any time, so let's get right into it.
Let's go. Holy head. Let's go.
So when you're going to weave your highlight, you want to have a good grip on your foiling comb. And you're going to kind of hold it like a pencil so that you have a good grip on it. And then coming into the weave, I'm actually like pulling up each section, and this is going to make it easier to grab the hair. And when you're going to grab that hair that you've weaved out, it's easier to grab it up at the top versus, at the bottom of the section, because that'll be a little bit harder to grab. So once you've grabbed your section and you can see how it is weaved out, what you want to do before you take your foil is pull this section up, over direct it forward, grab your foil, and you can either use a foiling board or just your comb and place it down like that. So I'll show you again. If you didn't over direct this section, what would happen is if you just pulled it out this way and set the foil underneath, you're gonna have all this gap space there. And that's gonna leave space to cause bleed marks, and you're not gonna be able to get as close to the scalp. So when you take your weaved out section, over direct it forward, then put the foil in and lay it down, you're gonna get a much tighter section there. And then we're gonna take our lightener, and I like to start applying it as low as I can go. Obviously, if you're doing a highlight retouch, you wouldn't be applying it here, but in this case, we're applying it pretty low, and then I'm feathering it up so we get a natural root on her. After I finish applying the lightener, I want you to watch this technique that I do. I take the board and I press it up into her root as I simultaneously pull the ends of her hair down, and that just gives us a really tight foil. And then any darker pieces, you're just going to pull those up and add them into your highlight. And this doesn't go all the way to the end. Her very ends are still lightened, so we're going to keep those out. And then we're going to flip this out so we have as minimal overlapping as possible. So I'm going to fold this up. And then with the next section, I'm going to show you how I would do it without the board. So if you are not used to using the board, I'm going to show you how to place your foil in using just the comb. So I'm going to take down my next section, which is going to be about 1/4 of an inch. And then again, watch as I weave the highlight out. I'm almost scooping and pulling the hair up. And then I'm gonna grab this up top here, pull that down. And then what I like to do is I like to flip it all the way over, grab my foil, fold it, and when I'm folding it, you can either fold your foil towards you or away from you, whatever you're comfortable with. You don't want to set your comb down. That's going to waste way too much time. So if I'm setting my comb down in between doing all of this, it's just going to waste time. So you want to get in the habit of always holding your comb. So I'm holding this foiled out, weaved out section with my pointer finger and my middle finger, and then I grab the foil with my thumb. I'm going to take this with this finger, grabbing it there, and then I'm going to take this part of my hand and fold. And then I am going to lock this in just like that. And see how tight that foil is? And then I'm gonna apply the lightener just like this. And you can see the difference between having a board and not having a board is that we don't get as flat of a surface, especially when you're working on the round part of your client's head. It's easier to have the board because that's going to give you just an easier surface to paint on. You can use your hand, but obviously your hand is not as flat as a board, but it's whatever your personal preference is. And then folding it up, I'm gonna meet the bottom up top there. And since these are the bigger foils, I do sometimes like to fold that bottom bit up and then fold the sides as well. It's good to fold the sides up because if you had to put your client underneath the dryer and the sides were open, sometimes that lightener can spill out of the sides. It almost gets a little liquidy when it heats up, so you wouldn't want lightener to be just like pouring out of the sides of your foil. If you ever have this happen where you've just finished a beautiful foil and you go to fold it up and it's ripped, what are you gonna do? So what I would say to do is to fold the end just like that, and then you're gonna fold it up like that, and you won't have to worry about that tear in the foil. Heading into doing her mohawk section, I'm actually going to be doing some teasy lights, and I'm just going to be talking through how I do teasy lights and what my technique is. So I actually like to weave out the highlight first and then tease it. I find that this just makes it a little more easier to see what you're weaving out, and then you can tease on top of that. And then what I do is I apply my lightener on the middle of the hair section, and then I feather it up and feather it down. It depends on your client's hair and what they have going on. Obviously, some people might need it all the way up to the root or all the way down to the ends, but this is how I'm doing it on this client here. I'm not going all the way to her ends. I'm just taking it almost to her ends. Some of her ends are pretty bright still, and we want to try not to overlap. So I'm just going to go into folding up that foil, and as you can see, I'm not overcomplicating things. I'm just keeping it really simple when it comes to doing teasy lights. I'm taking diagonal sections here, and I've just split her hair down the middle because that's where she parts it. And then this way I can use this technique as a very visual technique, and I'm really scooping out some pretty big sections here, and then I'm going into teasing, and I'm back combing with my foiling comb about 4 or 5 times, and I'm just combing from like the middle of her hair shaft to the root. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my board, put it on underneath, and then I'm going to start applying my lightener. And like I said, I like to start with applying the bulk of my lightener right in the middle there. And I know that everyone's hair is different, so obviously use your judgment. Try not to overlap on previously lightened hair, but on this client, I am applying it right in the middle of her hair shaft, and then I'm bringing it down and I'm feathering it up into the root, and that's just going to give us such a nice softness, so we're not going to have to worry about diffusing anything with a root shadow after we do her lightening. It's going to be well diffused between the tease and brushing up that lightener. That technique with brushing the lightener up really helps to diffuse any lines. You don't want to get any harsh lines when you're doing lightener, especially when you're lifting from lower levels. The lower the level that you are lifting from, sometimes the harsher the lines you're going to get. So you just want to be aware of what level you're starting with and what level you're trying to go to. And the darker the hair, the more you're probably going to have to diffuse the lines and the transition. So if you think of, I mean, her hair obviously is a natural level 6, and we are lightening her up to a level 10. So that's about 4 levels that we're trying to diffuse out. So she doesn't need a ton of diffusion. That's why we're not going to need to do any kind of root shadow on these teasy lights whenever we go to rinse her. I'm just going to be able to throw her toner on, let her process in a cap, and that'll be good to go. We won't have to go through and do any kind of root shadow. And that just saves time in the salon, but you just want to be aware of what your client wants. Her natural root is going to serve as our root shadow, and going in with the teasing and then feathering up the lightener, that is going to be enough to diffuse that transition line. So that's what I'm doing on this client, and feel free to leave me a comment with any questions you may have about teasy lights. These are so fun to do in the salon. It's such a fun technique, and it really does give the most beautiful results. So I wanted to make sure that I got the whole mohawk section for you guys, and as you can see, I didn't do a ton of foils in her mohawk section. I probably did like 5 or 6 foils, and it's going to give us a really bright pop because I took pretty chunky weaves. So I can't wait for you to see her final result. Stay tuned. Heading over to the shampoo bowl, I'm going to be pulling out her foils, rinsing, shampooing her, and then toning. I like to put a towel around the client's neck beforehand, pull their hair out from under, and then slowly lean them back into the bowl. Make sure they're comfortable before you get started. So I'm heading over to the shampoo bowl to go ahead and rinse out her highlights and then do her toner. I wanted to show you what her foils are gonna look like and what you're going to be looking for when the foils are done. So this is going to be a completely processed foil. We are past the point of yellow. So we've got this very, very pale, almost white look to her hair, and she's got a pretty light natural color, so we're able to get her really light. Not everybody can get all the way up to this level with lightener, but since she has a lighter base, we're able to get her really, really bright. So anytime you're checking foils, you just want to make sure that you are kind of past that orange/yellow portion of the lightening process, because that's what's going to cause a lot of that brassiness. So I'll show you what another foil looks like. And the rule of thumb is you want to get to about the inside of a banana peel. And that is what we're looking like here. So I am going to pull out all of her foils and get her all rinsed. So I did do some teasy lights on her hair, and I am not going to comb out any of the teased pieces. A quick tip on getting the tease combed out, you're just gonna like rinse it, shampoo it, condition, tone it, all the things, and don't even worry about combing out the tease until you get back to the chair, because a lot of it is going to straighten out just by the water. So you definitely do not want to sit here and like take a brush and brush out her hair when she has lightener in her hair or when it's wet, because the hair is the most fragile when it's wet. So if I was sitting here at the shampoo bowl trying to comb out her teased pieces while it was wet, that would just be so much unnecessary damage for the client, and we just do not want to put people through that. So we're not going to. But I have seen people do it, and it is traumatizing to watch. Is this temperature okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Quick shampoo. And you don't always have to shampoo before you put the toner on, but Sometimes it's good just to make sure you kind of stop that lightener from processing. Obviously it's been all rinsed out of her hair, but I'm actually using a apple cider vinegar shampoo that is a little more acidic. So it's lightener is very alkaline. So if you use an acidic based shampoo, it's gonna kind of calm the hair down, close the cuticle a little bit, and just seal in that highlight. And that's what the toner is as well. The toners are acidic, so it helps to seal in the color, put that cuticle back down. The alkaline lightener lifts up the cuticle so that it can penetrate the hair shaft and lighten it, and then the toner kind of seals it down. Before you apply your toner, you want to make sure you're really wringing out all the moisture out of the hair. I like to towel dry, so wring the hair out really good, grab a towel, and just kind of press that on your client's scalp, have them sit up a little bit, get underneath, and just wring all of the hair out. And now you can see this is her tone before we are putting on the toner, and she wants a little more of a silver platinum tone, so that's why we are going to be using the 10T and 10P in order to give us that really platinum gorgeous silver tone. So I'm going to apply this all over her hair, and as I apply this, I'm kind of squirting a little bit at a time and working it in as I go. And you can take the tip of the nozzle and really like squirt it in between the sections. And then squirt it on top. We did a lot of foils at the hairline, so I want to make sure that this is very well coated. And then you can always have your client sit up so that you can make sure you get the crown really well. We want to make sure that everything that we've highlighted is well coated. There's nothing worse than blow drying your client and you realize you've missed a spot with the toner. And I'm using Shades EQ, so with Shades EQ, it starts processing pretty quickly, so you can tell if you've missed a spot. The brighter spots are gonna show up really well if you've missed a spot with the toner. So I kind of just go through, and it's almost like you're shampooing this in. I like to really scrub it in so that I make sure it's well coated, and I can bring up the ends of her hair, fold it in half, scrub it together. And as you can see, that already changing the tone. We're kind of just splitting her hair gently, making sure we've covered everything. You want to make sure your client's neck is always comfortable, so having them sit up in this position isn't always comfortable for long periods of time, so you can have them lean back as you finish applying the toner. With these applicator bottles, there's always so much more in the bottle than you think. So then I'm going to have her sit up. I'm going to gather all this hair kind of at the bottom and twist it a little bit. I'm going to grab the processing cap. And when you go to put your client's hair in the processing cap, we don't want to put it in the processing cap like up here, because these ends of her hair, that's going to drip out of the cap. So we want to just gather all the hair at the bottom and put it in first, and then bring the cap up and over the hairline, making sure that your client can still see. Like, we don't want to put the cap over their eyes or anything like that. So she's good, and then you can sit down, and I'm gonna let you process for about 15 to 20 minutes. So while she processes with her toner, I just wanna give you guys like a little insight into the chemistry of highlighting and toning. Your hair's pH is at about a 4.5 to a 5.5 on the pH scale. So if you're not familiar with the pH scale, level 12 is alkaline, and then 0 is acidic. In the middle is neutral, which is 7, which is the pH of water. So that's why we say anytime you shampoo your hair, you're damaging it just a little bit, because anytime you're changing the pH of your hair, you're going to damage it. That's how you damage hair, is you change the pH. So just getting your hair wet shifts the pH like 3 levels. So that's going to, you know, damage it just a little bit. So obviously lightener is over on the alkaline scale, so it's almost, I think it's like a 12, 11, 12, depending on your lightener. Some lighteners are a little more gentle, but majority of them are about a level 10 to 12. So your lightener is going to be alkaline, and the reason why it's alkaline is so that it can open the cuticle of the hair shaft, penetrate in, and lighten the hair. Then when you go to tone the hair, so when you're lightening it, you're opening the cuticle, getting that hair lifted up, lightening, and then you're going to tone it. So the toner is going to be acid, so it's going to be on the acidic scale, just like conditioner. Your conditioner that you use every day is on the acidic side. It's actually good for our hair because our hair and skin naturally is at a 4.5 to a 5.5, which is on the acid side. So 7 is neutral. Anything lower than a 7 is on the acidic side. So the toners are always going to be acid-based, and the reason why that is so good for the hair is because that cuticle that was just blasted open and lightened is now going to be sealed closed and taken back down to its natural state, so that it's not frizzy and, you know, breaking off. So even if your client doesn't want a toner, even just doing a clear glaze, I know Redken Shades EQ has a clear gloss that you can do on your client. Even doing that is going to seal down that cuticle, give you a really nice shine and a really, really pretty finish for your highlights. I always do a toner, I just include it in my pricing. If your client does not want to do a toner, or they don't want to pay extra for it, if you charge extra for it, think about including it in your pricing, because I just think it's such a prettier finish when you have the toner done and their hair just gets a nice shine and glossing to it, and it just looks so much better. And it makes their color last a lot longer and their highlights not go brassy. So yeah. That is the chemistry portion of this video. This is how, you know, knotted she is after all of the teasing and shampooing and everything. And then this is her hair that has been combed out. I would definitely recommend getting a tangle teaser type brush. This brush has alternating bristles that makes it so easy to comb out the tease. So I'm just going to go through, comb this out. You want to kind of do this technique here. Just kind of go down a little bit, pull it out, and keep kind of picking it out as you go down. And then you've got it all combed out. Talking about detangling your client's hair for a second, I have had in the past where the client just has such tangly hair that you just cannot even get a brush through it. Even the tangle teaser won't do it. So what I would recommend in that situation is you just go on to blow drying their hair. And if you have to cut their hair, just cut it after you've blow dried it. Just do it dry. Just blow the hair downward and it will blow out the tangles as you are drying it. And this just is a more comfortable way for you to get your client's tangles out. No one wants to sit there and have somebody like rip at their hair. It's very uncomfortable, especially if your client has fine hair. They probably have a tender scalp as well. So just a little tip for you. Let there be light. Hey. So another fine hair tip a lot of times I like to cut fine hair after it's already dry. So I'm gonna go ahead and get her blow dried, and then I'm gonna do her haircut. And it's just a lot easier to see with fine hair what you need to cut and then what not to, and then it prevents you from cutting too much off when the hair is super fine. The haircut portion of this video is actually going to be in a separate video, so if you're interested in learning about cutting fine hair, I like to do it dry typically, and I'll give you all the reasons why, and I'll teach you how to do point cutting with layers and all that stuff, so be sure to stay tuned for that video. I will link it in the description box. And here is going to be her final results for her color. Let me know in the comments what you think of this blonde. I absolutely love this on her. It's so natural, so pretty. She can go a long time in between appointments. This is going to grow out really natural since we have such a pretty diffusion with those teasy lights. It just looks so gorgeous in her mohawk section, and her money piece is poppin'. So let me know what you think about this video, and I will see you beauties in the next one.
Let's go, let's hit, let's go.